Hi, I'm Nate, a doctor specializing in obstetrics. A few years ago, I was asked to give a short presentation to junior doctors who were going to step up and take on more responsibilities in the hospital, specifically in the maternity unit.
I got responsibilities now. Responsibilities? That means I'm not allowed to have fun anymore for the rest of my life.
The reason I was asked to give that talk was because I had recently stepped up, and so all the experiences were still fresh in my mind. And my talk would cover advice I would have wanted myself before starting at that position. Because it is daunting making decisions that can impact the mother, the baby, the family for the rest of their lives. Back then, I wanted to make my presentation a little bit edgy, something that would keep people's attention. And a lot of what I was planning to say was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but when I showed it to my supervisors, I was advised to change it. All of it.
Back to the drawing board.
Since I now have my own YouTube channel, I think I can share that presentation in its original form.
I'm the king of the world!
If you're enjoying this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Your support means a lot to me. And as we approach August, a lot of junior doctors will be stepping up into more senior roles and taking on greater responsibilities. And many who have just graduated from university will be starting their first ever placement as actual doctors.
Good. Could you go drop an NG tube on the patient in 234 and call the attending if the lavage is positive?
I don't know jack.
So here are my advice I wish I could tell my younger self. Number 1. Assume I know nothing.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
When you've been a perfectionist for most of your life and you've gone through years of studying to get to where you are, there seems to be a certain expectation that you should know everything there is to know about medicine. And that burden of thinking you need to know everything there is can be crushing, especially when you're only starting out. You're literally just starting out. How can anyone expect you to know everything? And a lot of what you've learned in medical school is probably outdated. Science continues to move forward, and so should you. And this expectation is often constructed in your own head. I'm not suggesting that you should fake it till you make it.
Don't do that.
However, when you're able to admit to yourself that there are gaps in your knowledge and what you can do, then you can start to approach things with humility. When I started treating my job, my profession, my responsibilities with humility, I realized I started caring for the right things. It meant that I was curious and would try to find answers through reading research papers and guidelines, and became braver when asking questions that sounded silly in my head. And that made me a better doctor. Advice number 2. Assume everyone around me knows nothing.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I'm sure there's a better way to say this. When it comes to managing health problems, especially when we're starting out in a new specialty or a new hospital, it's easy to fall into a habit of just doing what we're told without questioning the reason as to why we do what we do.
Just do it!
A lot of the times it's the fault of us senior clinicians who put on an air of I'm holier than thou, and so thou shalt not doubt my incredible knowledge.
You haven't even got a watch. I'm better than you.
At other times, it's because if we start asking questions, perhaps people will think we're stupid or incompetent. Again, the pressure of appearing like we need to know everything to our patients, to our staff or peers can be intense. But if we don't try to learn from each other, if we lose that curiosity that our university experience has trained us, then we won't be able to provide excellent care. Therefore, always be asking questions, no matter how silly they may sound in our heads. However, there will be times when what we're asked to do doesn't actually make sense. Then it's truly time you should be asking questions. And if the answer you get isn't particularly convincing, then it's time to do some detective work. Analyze research articles and guidelines so that you can provide the best care possible. And I love it when my juniors ask me questions because it puts me in check as to whether my knowledge and my decision making is up to scratch. And if they're not, then I can find ways to improve. I used to be an arrogant dweeb. Hopefully, I'm now less of a dweeb.
I'm a tool. I'm a tool. I'm a tool, an unbelievably annoying tool.
Yeah.
Next up, play nice with the midwives. Bear in mind that this presentation was aimed at junior doctors in obstetrics and gynecology. But this advice applies anywhere. Many of the nurses, midwives, healthcare assistants, pharmacists have worked at the same place for years, which brings with them a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. I know whenever I'm unsure with what I was doing, which used to be most of the time, I can always ask a senior midwife or nurse for support and advice, and I can trust that they've got my back, as long as I remain affable. In fact, one of my fondest memories was when a senior midwife handed me a sandwich during a very busy shift, because I had not managed to have lunch and it was already 5 in the evening. Witnessing babies being born is great, but the real deal is being gifted a sandwich.
That sandwich was the only good thing going on in my life.
What act of kindness have you had in your workplace? Write a comment as I'd love to hear from you. What I find a struggle is, even though we're working in healthcare, there seems to be a tendency of treating each other unkindly, with staffing issues, and more of my colleagues feeling undervalued. We just need to show each other a bit more humanity. And if you're able to brew a good pot of tea or bake, then you're already winning. And there's evidence which shows effective team working improves the quality of care people receive. So working in a team that looks after each other is good for patients. Who would have thought? Number 4. Shit happens.
It happens.
When working in healthcare, we're incredibly driven by outcomes, like mortality rate, post-op complications, or the number of sandwiches consumed on a shift. I really can't let go of that sandwich.
I call it the moist maker.
Thankfully, for the most part, especially in my specialty, things turn out fine. Parents are happy that their children are born alive and well, and they can start preparing for the 18 years of sleep deprivation which lie in front of them. However, there will be times in medicine when things don't go to plan. Even if you've done everything by the book, you diagnosed the problem expertly, you acted quickly, you got the right teams involved swiftly, you do everything you can for the person in front of you, and yet things don't go your way. There have been a handful of times this has happened in my career. They've all felt devastating, especially the first time it occurred. And it's easier to dwell on these moments than on the lovely, incredible times when you and the team have done everything splendidly and things turn out well. I'd spend months thinking about the patient and everything I've done, or should have done, or could have done, and along the way spiraled emotionally to a very dark place because I felt responsible for the patient and the care they received. Hence, it's important for young doctors who are about to step up to the plate to hear that shit happens. It may be on your first day, or your first on-call shift, or your second year, when things don't go the way you hoped, but never think that you should shoulder all of the responsibility. This leads on to my final advice: be good to myself. Medicine is a tough profession. Sometimes you may meet people who are unkind, teams that are toxic, or you may find yourself in a challenging situation. And yes, there will be days or weeks when the job feels relentless. And like a hamster on a wheel, you may feel like you're running, but you're not actually going anywhere. Thus, it's important for you to hear this. It's okay to leave work on time and have a social life outside of the hospital. It's essential for you to ask for help when you're not quite sure what you're doing. It's okay. And there'll be periods of time when you feel like you can't seem to do anything right. And that's okay. That feeling will pass. There's no need to punish yourself with thoughts of feeling inadequate. We need to learn to celebrate the wins. If you're struggling with thoughts of inadequacy, it's important that you speak with someone whom you trust. It could be your supervisor, a colleague, or friends and family, even those who aren't medical. And there are formal support available, like the Professional Support Unit, which offers confidential services for doctors in training, as well as services from the NHS Staff Support and the BMA, as well as your GP. I've included some links in the description below. Even though we're in the business of caring for people, it's easy to neglect ourselves. But we can't care for others if we ourselves are compromised. So never ever think you're alone, because how you're feeling is how 99% of us have felt at any one moment. I hope this has been helpful. For those who have just graduated and are about to start the foundation training, congratulations. I remember my first year fondly. You're all in the same boat and you're all trying to keep your heads above water. Give this video a like if you found this helpful. Share, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.